Barcelona announced yesterday that Ousmane Dembélé must be sold, that he has to leave immediately, and they hope that he will be sold this January. I mean, talk about being completely transparent. What's up, by the way? I'm Adrian, and welcome to today's video on Ousmane Dembélé, who would have guessed, and his imminent exit from Barcelona. In this video, we'll be crunching some numbers here. There are some crazy numbers when it comes to his appearances, and basically what Barcelona paid per appearance from him, compare him to similar players in the top 5 leagues, the stories of his lack of professionalism, and we'll speak with one of my podcast mates, Mr. Josh Deming from JJD TV and the Unsackable podcast, about whether there were signs of this happening when he was at Dortmund and who his role model was at that club. And it's a bit illuminating. And by the way, do give the Unsackable podcast a follow on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. We typically do 1, sometimes 2 per week on all things football. South America, North America, Europe, wherever. We cover it all, man. Links below for you as well to make it easy. Beyond that, let's get to it. Gerard Romero and other journalists stated that Dembele's demands were around 40 million euros per season, which to me just stinks of a bad faith demand, a demand that is intentionally over the top because you want to leave. But if someone pays you 40 million per year, you take it, because let's be real, nobody is worth that much. And what makes it extra insulting to the Barca board, or furthers that it is a disingenuous demand, the fact that Dembele and his agent know the financial state of Barcelona. They saw living proof of that with Messi's departure, and they still demand that kind of salary to renew. And so this led to the quotes on Thursday, January 20th, from Barcelona director Mateu Alemany, and he didn't mince his words at all. Let's run through it. It's clear that Dembele does not want to continue with Barcelona. He doesn't want to be part of our project. We've talked and talked, made various offers, we've tried to find a way, but these offers have been systematically rejected by his agents. It seems obvious he does not want to continue at Barca and is not committed to Barca's future project. Yeah, I mean, that basically confirms what I was saying about the disingenuous demands that they made as far as an annual salary goes. But anyway, back to Alemany. In this scenario, he and his agents have been informed that he must leave immediately because we want players committed to this project, and therefore, we hope a transfer will take place before January 31st. On the football side, the result is we do not want to have players who are not committed to Barca. The club is obviously not the one that should decide this, it's the coach, and he has. But he has all our support. It seems to us absolutely the correct approach. So this was largely Xavi's call, it seems, but Barcelona is going through a revolution at every level. That includes getting rid of weighty contracts that don't make sense. You can thank Bartomeu for those, and getting rid of so-called bad apples who are there to just collect a paycheck or exploit the club financially, as opposed to wanting to fight for the club to make it a dominant force again in Spanish and European football. In Barca's point of view, this is exactly how they see Dembele, and with his contract running out in June, the time has come to get rid of him before he leaves for free. Dembele's response to all of this, the first 2 paragraphs of his Instagram posts were about how he is done with the negativity and the lies surrounding him in the media, and then he said, quote, "I forbid anyone to attribute intentions to me that I have never had. I forbid anyone to speak for me or my representative, whom I fully trust. I'm still under contract. I am fully involved and at the disposal of my club and coach. I have always given everything for my colleagues and also for all partners, and that won't change now. I'm not a man who cheats, and even less a man who has a habit of giving in to blackmail. As you know, there are negotiations. I let my agent handle it. It's his turf. My field is the ball, playing football, sharing moments of joy with my teammates and fans. Above all, let's focus on winning." How to sum up Dembele's time at Barcelona? I mean, it's difficult, but ultimately he was a tease. He would tease us with moments of brilliance when he was healthy, only to mess up the final ball or the finish, and then he would be gone again. Sometimes he would score a worldie or go on a ludicrous mazy run through defenders and get your heartbeat racing and then disappear, often for months at a time. In fact, I jumped into the numbers of just how much Dembele has missed for Barcelona, and it's pretty shocking to see these numbers facing you. After signing for 140 million euros back in 2017, Dembele's market value, according to Transfermarkt, has plummeted to just 30 million euros, 110 million euros fewer than he was purchased for. Why? Much of that is thanks to his horrible injury record. This is his 5th season, and in that time, Dembele has missed a shocking amount of matches. His total days spent with the medical staff is 695, almost 2 full years worth being unavailable through injury. In total, across all competitions, he has made just 129 appearances for Barcelona, 129 appearances out of a possible 253 since he joined the club in 2017. That's an average of just 28 appearances per season when you divide it across the 4.5 seasons he has been with Barca so far. Considering Barca typically plays anywhere between 50 to 60 matches per season, he has shown face at about half of those. Or how about this? Let's take his transfer fee of 140 million and divide that amongst his 129 appearances. And it's not an exact science, of course, but just for fun, let's do it. 140 million euros spread across 129 appearances equates to Barcelona paying 1.08 million euros per appearance from Dembele. Not a superb deal by them. Well, by the Bartomeu regime. Let's make that absolutely clear. Going further, let's look at what his performances have offered this season. As I saw a lot of people talk about how Barcelona are crazy to do this, as he is one of their best talents, which isn't wrong, but how does he stack up to players in his position across the top 5 leagues in Europe this season? Unsurprisingly, dribbling is his greatest asset. When it comes to dribbles completed, he averages 3.07 per 90, putting him in the 94th percentile. But his successful dribble percentage is just 54.4%, which means he is only in the 49th percentile. I was shocked by that one, as that puts him in the bottom half, but when you attempt so many dribbles, the average is always going to go down. Progressive carries are where you can see he really thrives and is very much elite. I mean, just look at his carries into the box. He ranks within the top 1% of all similar players in the top 5 leagues, which is wild and a huge achievement. When it comes to distribution, he attempts a lot of crosses. He's in the 97th percentile for crosses attempted per 90, but he's only in the 75th percentile for completed crosses with just 0.4 per 90, less than 50% completion rate. As for key passes per 90, 1.93, putting him in the 76th percentile. Goal creating actions per 90, those being dribbles, passes, or a shot that leads to another teammate scoring, most of which coming from dead ball situations, whereas his dribbles don't typically lead to goals, but they do lead to opportunities or shots for his teammates, which I found kind of interesting. Throughout his time at Barcelona, there were always murmurs of Dembele's struggles with, let's just call it, professionalism. Well, first of all, there was the bad luck, tons of injuries ruling him out for many matches in his first season with Barcelona, and then more injuries, and more after that, where it gets to the point where people began to question whether the injuries were a bit of a chicken and the egg situation, if you will. After the initial injuries, was he doing enough outside of training to focus on rest, recuperation, nutrition, and everything else that's associated with being a professional athlete? One thing that I do need to add here, in fairness to Dembele, that I forgot to say when filming, what's up? This is editor Adrian, by the way. It's just the fact that Barcelona's medical team has seen some changes from before. Now, prior to Xavi arriving, the coach had the final say on whether a player should return or not. But now, the medical staff is trusted with that decision, as they should be. So, there's absolutely a big chance that there are 3 things at play here. Bad luck for Dembele to begin with the injuries, Dembele potentially not doing what is required for his rehab, and the former Barcelona managers rushing him back onto the pitch before he was ready or had properly rehabilitated his injury. Okay, back to the normal host. What spurred those sort of musings was how Dembele had allegedly made a habit of showing up late to training and team meetings, and reports of the French attacker spending many nights playing video games and eating fast food into the early hours. There was one story of a club doctor showing up to Dembele's house in the afternoon to find friends all over the place sleeping, and Dembele himself was still in bed. It certainly calls into question whether there's a lack of good examples surrounding him. Piqué and Suarez back in 2018 both commented on Dembele. Let's start with Piqué. Quote, "If the coach doesn't call him up, it's to help him improve. We're all here to help him. We've all been young like him. We've all made mistakes like him. From experience, you have to teach players like Dembele that football lasts for all 24 hours of the day. You have to live it from the first minute until the last." And Suarez, he said, quote, "Ousmane knows football is a privilege for every player, and I think he needs to focus more and be more serious in some ways." Now, with the way he left Dortmund, could this reach all the way back there? Let's talk to Josh from JJD TV and the Unsackable podcast, of course. And so when you look at what happened at Barcelona when he went there with all the injury issues, the lack of appearances that he's had, what we're hearing about him maybe having some sort of issues as far as maybe role models or professional sort of leadership around him, maybe his agent is leading him astray. Does this all sort of surprise you, the way things that have gone down at Barcelona, or does this just seem like a trajectory that he was already on when he was leaving Dortmund?
Dembele did what I don't think you should ever do, and that's just go AWOL and kind of cry your way out of the club and put a terrible taste in everyone's mouth who just supported you after a very, very successful first season. But it's fun enough because I kind of mentioned the Aubameyang, and because obviously he's spent most of his life in France, so they had a good relationship right away because they spoke the same language, and that Aubameyang was kind of Dembele's, in my opinion, one of his first role models. So it's kind of funny to see how Aubameyang's career has went with all of his off-field issues, and that's kind of who Dembele originally looked up for. But that's just me theorizing. His Barca career went a different way, and the injuries had a huge part of that. There's issues now, and now he's coming to the end of his contract, and Barca are telling him to play ball. And in this situation, I mean, it's not like he at Dortmund we let his contract come to an end. Barca allowed his contract to come to an end. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for Barca. I mean, it is what it is. If they want to sell him to get a little bit of money, they can. But I don't know. I think it was Dembele's last 5 years were dictated from the decision to force his way out of the club that I think he should have stayed for another season or two to help better develop and get a feel for his body, what it can do, and take his game to another level instead of putting now this image around you, fighting your way out, going to Barca, and then having honestly a miserable time.
Basically, Josh, what I'm trying to sort of understand here is it seems like this guy lacks a good role model around him in some ways, and that his agent doesn't really help, because when you look at some of the stories that came out while he was at Barcelona, like he's been staying up super late playing video games, he doesn't eat well, he doesn't have like a proper nutritionist, he doesn't really take care of his body properly, he lacks in sort of the professional side of being a professional, as clumsy as that sounds. Like, is this something that would you say that you saw glimpses of that at Dortmund, or as far as you heard, he was always showing up to training, he was taking care of himself, etc.?
No, I mean, there's definitely small indicators, but it's an interesting topic going on how an athlete should treat himself versus the way that some of it they do, because there's been a lot of stories out there of wonderful players in multiple different sports that didn't take training overly serious or wasn't the best in training, but when it came to game time, they were flawless. And remembering his days at Dortmund, I mean, he was young. He seemed like a very quiet player. He really liked to gel, like I said, with Aubameyang, and they had a special connection, which was both on and off the pitch. And I didn't really notice crazy cracks from him that was going to go to what happened at Barca. It just kind of came into fruition because he like I said, he seemed like a very quiet guy when he was at Dortmund, and all of a sudden the Barca link started coming around. Something turned and he went AWOL. It's a dangerous thing to do as a player, and it put a lot of cracks between him and Dortmund, and it was an ugly mess to lead him to going. And I know it really upset Aubameyang at the time as well. Aubameyang was livid with the situation and seeing that Dembele leave, even though Dembele was one clawing himself out of the club. So I think it spoke to me being that young, being 20 years old after having an incredible season, winning the Pokal, getting your name out there, that you're going to scratch your way out of a club who gave you that opportunity. In my opinion, the last 5 years have almost kind of been karma. And if you ask any Dortmund fan, and I guess I shouldn't generalize, but I mean, if you pretty much, any Dortmund fan I've asked about Aubameyang or Dembele, none of them have any love lost for them. They're glad the players are out of the club. They would never welcome them back. And that's kind of how he's remembered by Dortmund fans, despite the incredible season that I really enjoyed watching him. He's my favorite player to watch that season. What you did to leave the club kind of spoke to your character. And I don't know if there's a way around that.
Overall, and alert, this is my opinion on things, with the announcement made by Dembele and how he fully supports and trusts his agent, etc., it seems like he is going to get his wish. It seems like he wants out of Barca. It seems like he wants more money, and he won't find that there. He wants to leave the club behind and all of the skeletons in his closet from his time there, the bad vibes and memories, and honestly, it would be best for all parties involved if he did. Good for Dembele, good for Barcelona, and good for his trusted agent's bank account as well. Now, wherever he ends up, Chelsea, Newcastle, PSG, he has a lot to prove, not only on the pitch, but of his professionalism. If I'm involved in a club's recruitment, I wouldn't be running to sign him personally, as I would want players who are serious about the sport. And from what we have seen, from the negotiations, from the lack of professionalism, I don't get the impression that Ousmane Dembélé is a serious footballer. I hope he proves me and many others wrong, because when he's in form, he's absolutely phenomenal. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and if you did, if you're new around here, then hey, consider subscribing and sticking around for more from myself here. Other than that, thanks for watching and have a great weekend. Ciao.